Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. Congressman Andy Biggs, my dear friend from the great state of Arizona, joins us now in the midst of a hectic afternoon and evening on Capitol Hill, and he joins us from his office on Capitol Hill. Congressman Biggs, a pleasure, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Judge. Good to be with you.
Where do we stand on the election of a Speaker of the House of Representatives, and what can you tell us about the behind doors conclave that the Republicans just had and which just ended?
So what I'll tell you is that the vote came out. Steve Scalise had 113. Jim Jordan had 99. There were 8 for somebody else and 3 that voted present. Of those that voted, you had 3 what we would call ineligible voters, in the sense that they represent the territories, so they cannot vote on the floor for Speaker. We surmise that they all went for Scalise. Don't know that for sure, but that would take it down to 110 to 99. And basically, there was an effort to try to say, let's close it behind doors. Let's hash it out and have the argument and debate. And as you know, you have to have 217 votes on the floor to actually become the Speaker. We're down, I think the number is 1 or 2 from the Republican side, because you have a vacancy and then you have a member who's absent today. So that narrows the scope, and where we sit is we're going to go to the floor. I think that the nominee, Mr. Scalise, right now is short the votes requisite to become the next Speaker on the floor of the House.
Wow. And is that shortage caused by the perception that he's another Kevin McCarthy?
You know, I've talked to a number of people who've indicated where they're going, and there's a wide variety of reasons. Number one is not necessarily that he's another Kevin McCarthy, but that he has been here for 20 years. He's part of the kind of the K Street uniparty, whatever you want to call it, a long time part. So that was one reason. Another reason is people are genuinely and legitimately concerned about his health. They want him to heal and be better, and I think we all want that. I know I do. But if he misses, and I've heard from various members of this body that have had cancer and have undergone treatment, different treatment than he's undergoing, but they've said that they don't think he would be in the condition to be able to perform everything that he would need to. And so that was one thing. So whether that's a legitimate concern, that's up to them. And then others were just, is this just giving us the status quo ante? In other words, giving you the status quo of Kevin McCarthy.
Does a conservative like Jim Jordan, or a libertarian like you, somebody who's not part of the pro-war, pro-big government, pro-debt, pro-Ukraine uniparty, stand a chance at being elected Speaker? And flip side of that, if Congressman Scalise does become the Speaker, I guess that means the floodgates open to more debt and more aid to Ukraine. Please take it from there.
Yeah, so I actually believe that because what I'm telling you now is not that it's conservatives necessarily that are impeding Steve Scalise's path. There are moderates that are concerned as well, for various reasons, as I said.
Right.
So what does that mean? If Steve becomes the Speaker, people are by the way, getting back to answer your question, I do think a conservative has a chance to win. You have to reach out. You have to get moderate votes because that's just the way this thing works. And you have to convince them that you're going to give them a fair shake to advance, at least within reason, some of their agenda items. One thing, for instance, everybody's coalesced around the border. So that is one thing everybody seems to agree on across the conference. So that is one point that a conservative could express an ability to bring both sides and perform some kind of coalition forming there. So, having said that, what would it look like? I am concerned. I've always been concerned that with either one of these, and so I'm going to talk about timing and policy. So, with the timing of this, Judge, if a CR is passed, anytime in the next 2 months, that will effectively end this term in Congress. And a lot of people are like, "Whoa, wait, we must go." And I don't disagree with that. I'm fully on board. We need to run this thing through the tape. But if they pass a continuing resolution spending bill, what that means is they move into January, which is an election year. It is a presidential election year. And Judge, those of us who, well, I've been doing this now, but I've observed it a long time before I came here, is in an election year, these guys unplug because they don't want to do anything that they think might disrupt the status quo. And that's dangerous to me. I mean, I view that as extreme danger.
All right. Why is there no, I'm assuming there's no vote. The news media has been told the House went home for the day. Why is there not an immediate vote on Scalise tonight? Because his bean counters don't have 217 votes?
That's right. That's what it is, Judge.
And where stand the 6, 7, 8 of you, I forget how many there were, who were courageous enough to prevent McCarthy from keeping his job? Where stand those of you who did that on Congressman Scalise?
It's kind of I'm not going to reveal my vote is still, Judge, I don't whip. I don't whip to the whip team. So I don't talk about my vote publicly before I go. But I will tell you that there are some that they view it as that a CR is going to happen no matter whichever of these two, because neither one is going to give us the 12 budget bills and get this thing done. So you might see one or two go and say go with Scalise. I think there's some others that have indicated that they're staying out, and others that are indicating that they're going to vote for Jordan, certainly in the first round. And by the way, it's not just that 8. It's well beyond that 8 right now in the conference, Judge.
What would happen if whoever is the speaker put on the floor of the House of Representatives President Biden's request for another $28 billion to his drawdown authority for Ukraine?
I would suggest that you would have a real Donnybrook, and my guess is it would pass. I think there's just enough neocons and warhawks in conference that it would pass. But and I hate to give you that bad news, but I think that's what would happen. But I do think a bigger challenge, a bigger problem that you have than that is the Biden administration is trying to link Ukraine funding with a supplemental for Israel, with a supplemental for Taiwan, with a supplemental for let me see, one other. I can't remember what the other one is. So he's trying to link all these together, and I just think that would fail. I think that would fail because the people know it. But that would just tell you, for instance, on the Israel thing, a bill was already passed out 2 weeks ago from the DoD that would provide them with their annual funding with some additional authorities. Blinken himself said that they don't need more money right now, and they don't need additional authorities for the Biden administration to actually assist Israel. And my impression from talking to folks in Israel is they want the U.S. to be supportive. But they don't want the U.S. to be interventionist, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Where do things stand on the border? I know it's an issue of great concern to you. You represent a border state, and you're next to a border district. Is Joe Biden building Donald Trump's wall, whether enthusiastically or reluctantly?
Well, I Judge, I'll believe it when I see it. I will tell you, 18 months ago, Mayorkas went down to Yuma where there's some fencing, and then there's like 9 big gaps that everybody comes through. And he said, there's actually more than 9 gaps, but he said, I will close these 9 gaps before the end of last year. And he didn't do it. And it's been over a year and a half now. So I believe it when I see it. And I will just, I could give you horror stories about what's happening now, but I'll give you an example. Lukeville, which is one of the most, it's a small, remote border crossing, but they're seeing hundreds and hundreds a day coming through. And by the way, the report I just saw earlier today is in that crossing, you're seeing many of those hundreds coming from Syria.
Why don't they just go to this crossing and physically stop the people? How about 200 or 300 Border Patrol officers if there is no wall? I mean, I don't want to micromanage this, but in my experience with law enforcement, that would work. I'm talking about law enforcement in New Jersey in the years I was on the bench. Maybe
Right.
Arizona in 2023 is a different story.
Judge, a show of force of personnel would actually turn them around. But this administration refuses to let them show force. What this administration is doing is you have the CBP agents, you have air marshals, for instance, you have other people in the Marshal Service. They are now turning into a welcome center. They're transporting people. They do not allow them to kind of show force. In fact, they have so many people off the line. There are times when I've been down on the border, Judge, and I've driven for miles. I've watched people come across the border. I've been with off-duty agents. We've seen no on-duty agents because they're so busy working transport or processing that they're effectively babysitting in some places where they're having to take care of kids who are walking across unaccompanied. I've been to places that are so remote that I couldn't believe it, that we were actually coming across people because we were just driving there to get to another area that we thought we'd come across. I've seen a group of 25 sitting there and ask them where you came from. And they tell me the village name south of the border, which I'm familiar with. And the coyote left them off and said, you're going to need to walk 2 miles, look for that mountain right there, just keep following. You're going to come to a 4-strand barbed wire fence, go across that fence, sit down by the road, and eventually a CBP agent will come. And I asked that particular group, said, how long have you been here? They said, we've been there 3 or 4 hours and had not seen a CBP agent because there was simply no agents available to actually patrol that area of the border.
Okay, all right. It's either gross mismanagement or they really want these people to come in for whatever ideological or perverse reason that may be. Let me take you back to Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah.
No surprise, Senator Graham asked the president to bomb Tehran. Well, this is insane. But is this the mindset? Is this the mindset? He's a Republican. Is this the mindset of neocons that you have to deal with?
I would say, and let me put it this way, Judge. I hope Lindsey Graham is in the minority on that idea. This notion that we want to accelerate movement into World War III is mind-boggling to me. And Israel's going to do what it's going to do. It's capable of doing what it wants to do. Let's just face it. The Taliban is asked Iran if they can transit their country to come in and support Hamas. That's going to, with U.S. material, Judge, with U.S. material left when we in Afghanistan, you've got Hezbollah coming shooting from Lebanon. They're not fully in, but they're shooting missiles now and then. But that's fairly normal when there's an uprising by Hamas. But I think my colleagues are outraged. Of course, what Hamas is doing is absolutely butchery and inhumane. They are the barbarians at the gate. But I do believe Israel is absolutely perfectly capable of going in and taking care of what needs to be done, and they've promised that they're going to do that. But this notion that we're going to go in and accelerate this by attacking somebody in Iran, that's irresponsible rhetoric even.
What about the idea of more aid for Ukraine? Ukraine has lost the war. The spring come summer offensive was an absolute failure. Their death toll is astronomical. It's up to 500,000 soldiers dead, another 50, 70, 100,000 wounded and taken out of the battlefield. Are we still going to waste American dollars on this because Joe Biden can't find an off-ramp?
I reluctantly, but I must insist on telling you the truth. I do, again, think that I will tell you this. The number of people that are joining my position grows on a daily basis vis-a-vis the Ukraine.
When you say people, you mean colleagues of yours in the House of Representatives?
Yes, that's what I mean, my colleagues. But there's some who are intractable. I mean, never forget this, Judge. They were talking about as much as it takes and as long as it takes. And that kind of mentality, let's just face it, and I've talked about this before, that's probably the third step to absolute loss of your nation state. We've already experienced two of them: lose of your geographical integrity and loss of the value of your currency and your spending. The third one is absolutely overextending to your international warfare, and that's what we've seen in Ukraine. A lot of my colleagues still remain committed to funding that.
Does 33 trillion in debt terrify other members of Congress the way it terrifies you, me, and everybody watching us now?
I would say that a lot of people give lip service to how concerned they are, but they're not willing to do what needs to be done, and that is you're going to have to address all spending. You're going to have to. This is why I said move back to 2019 levels. So the short answer for your question is there are, I would say 40, and that might be a generous number, that want to do something seriously. But I can tell you that there are members who actually will go down to the floor, give a speech on a regular basis about how dangerous it is, and yet they will vote for every continuing resolution. They'll vote for additional funding. And my position is simply, at some point, you have to quit talking about it and take action. Otherwise, it may be too late now, Judge. It may be utterly too late. The home rate, the mortgage home rate now is over 8%. And that's heading up. Some analysts I've read who are not conservatives, in a Wall Street Journal analyst last week said, because of our structural deficit and our growing national debt and a failure of Congress to address those things meaningfully, he is projecting a severe depression in the not midterm but near-term future.
Add to all of that the astronomical interest rates.
Yes.
And the debt service is going to approach $1 trillion a year. First trillion of the dollars the IRS collects goes right out as interest on the debt.
That's right.
Your colleague Rand Paul says we borrow from the Chinese, give it to Ukraine, and print the money digitally to pay the interest on the money we borrowed from China. It's just absurd, sickening, unconstitutional, contrary to reason, contrary to Economics 101. But you're telling me the overwhelming majority of Republicans will go along with this?
Yes, sir. I hesitate to tell you that. In fact, those 21 of us who voted against the CR 2 weeks ago, behind closed doors, were repeatedly castigated over the last days and week, and then they wonder why our own Republican base questions the sincerity of our own rhetoric to tackle spending. And I don't. I know exactly why. I question it. I question it. I say, why would anybody trust us?
Right.
Obviously, you can't trust the Democrats, but at least they're honest. They're going to blow the roof off spending levels. They believe in the modern monetary theory. So at least they're honest. But we've got to be more honest. And the only way you're more honest is if you say, we're actually going to tackle it. We're actually going to do something about it. I mean, if you think you have to deal with mandatory spending, and ultimately you will, at least why not trim the discretionary spending back to 2019 levels?
Right. Congressman Biggs, I don't say this because you're my friend. I say it because I believe it in all my heart. I wish I were speaking to the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, because you understand the Constitution, you understand Economics 101, you understand the concept of nationhood, and you're not afraid of any of those things.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very flattering.
I have referred to you many times on this program as the intellectual guru behind the rebels, because I know how well read and how smart you are. And I don't say that to embarrass you. I say it because it is more likely than, and I've never been in those meetings, it's more likely than not true.
You're very kind. You're very kind.
Thank you, Congressman Biggs. Come back whenever you want. Stay the course. Don't let those people that have no principles take over the Republican Party.
All right, Judge, I'll keep fighting. I know you will, and your audience will too. Thanks.
My audience loves you. Thank you, Congressman Biggs. All the best.
Thank you so much.
More as we get it. Keep the subscriptions coming. We're up to 209,000. Our goal is 250,000 by Christmas time. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, tell a neighbor, tell a coworker what we do at Judging Freedom. We look out for your liberty.